No.
Okay, here we go. Break time's over. Foundation. One of the first things that the inspector ought to do is walk the house. They're going to look for exterior cracking, etc. They're going to look for things like stair step cracking. Very common in Florida, right? They just go like this. Okay, so that is common, unless there's always the unless. You look down here. Some are normal settling, others aren't. Do you know how to distinguish between the two? Nope. Okay, a common stair step crack is going to be broader at the top, wider at the top, and less at the bottom.
So like,
That means it's going this way. That's common settling. If it goes this way on a crack, that tells you the foundation, the footer has cracked and is broken. That's a bad thing. Stair step cracks
yes,
are usually totally common. Go to a vertical crack, straight line. Okay, now make it wider at the bottom and less at the top, just make it a V. Okay, now do the opposite.
Arrow.
Which one?
nail it.
Which one's less of a problem?
That one, yep.
The one on the right. If it's the one on the left and you can stick a quarter in there, it's a problem.
Huh.
Okay,
So how does? This is because of foundation.
foundation's cracking.
How can
And
you
there's-
see?
And everybody will go, what, you can't say that, you can't see it, and I'm like, how about 30 years of experience telling
Can't
me
you see
that's wrong?
deep, like if it opens from the bottom, if you could only see a little line from the top, move the journey.
Common. No, that's gonna be
Move the
common.
stairs.
If it's just a crack, and you can't even stick a dime in it,
Oh, okay, oh, so it would open
Then-
up a little bit more.
then that's just a crack. Welcome to Florida. It could be in the stucco.
Yeah.
Could not even be in the block whatsoever. Okay, but now if you can take a quarter and put it in there, that's a problem. Okay, a quarter is typically, well, it used to be almost an eighth of an inch thick, now it's a 16th, but anyhow, the difference is that, okay? So it all comes down to the width of that crack as far as if it's an issue or not. There are some where the stair step crack is super wide at the top. Same issue. It's the same issue, but different. And here's how. Foundation at a corner. If this corner falls, that crack's gonna be wide at the top, pulling this way. And you're gonna tell me it's gonna be cracking from both directions, okay? Things that are just nice to know and things that help you explain these things to a buyer or your seller. And to suggest that they have a structural engineer take a look at the house. That's what's gonna be required at that point.
So
Okay.
this would be foundation, this would just be normal settling.
Typically, yeah. Okay. Now, roof.
Just as you said, these would be the foundation of this one. you said
Correct.
line.
Yeah, this is
Correct.
okay. This is pretty normal, this is the foundation.
Yeah, well,
Yep, the crack wider at the bottom tends to indicate a foundation failure, which we are in Florida. And even the scriptures talk about building your home on the sand versus the rock. We in Florida build on sand. It's compressed and tamped sand, but if they didn't do the compression properly of that sand, it's a problem. Okay, and it'll show up eventually. So roof, age. Very first thing on the list. 23 years old, it's beyond its standard life expectancy. Even if they have a home warranty or a roof warranty that says 50, doesn't make any difference. The insurance companies are not gonna pick it up. Blame it on insurance. It's an insurance problem. Next is condition. Because again, if the condition visibly looks very nice, it doesn't have any leakage, it doesn't have sagging and rotting, it doesn't have staining and the softening, you can still get insurance on that old roof. However, you're gonna pay through the nose for it. It's not worth it. It's gonna have to be replaced. I don't know why people don't do their routine maintenance. A roof is maintenance. An AC system is maintenance. Those things, a hot water heater, that's maintenance. People are like, well, am I gonna get my money back? You already used it. This is like people saying, I use my, second mortgage funds to go buy a car. Am I gonna, now I owe that on the house. I'm not making any money off the house. You already did. You took the profit out of it. I can help you get out of this and get back to a zero. And or maybe you're gonna owe some money now because you took the insurance money. These things change, okay?
Yeah.
So there's always the what ifs, the buts, it depends. Staining in the soffit. Soffit being your roof. Your, let's call this a lanai roof. This is fascia, this is soffit. This section of soffit oftentimes is aluminum, wood, and in Florida, you never know, somebody might have put drywall out there. But the reality of it is, in an aluminum and or wood, you can see very quickly if there is a stain. And it happens all the time because the first place a roof is typically going to leak is on the edges.
Yeah.
And when that happens, and let's face it, with gutters, if people don't have an old roof and their gutters haven't been cleaned, they thought gutters were a great idea until they realized their oak tree clogs them up every other week, and they don't clean them. That water backs up, gets up underneath there, runs into the soffit, it's rotting the roof. So the roof is rotten. It does have rot. Even though in that scenario with a home that's not older, there's an easy enough cure, it's not cheap, but they'll go in and remove the shingles 2 feet up, replace the plywood. While they're doing that, what would we have them look for?
Right.
Okay, that's a good idea. Carpenter ants, termites, they like wood. What else? We're thinking inspections now. What would help you in a 4-point, or let's take it further, a wind mitt inspection?
Oh, tie downs.
Tie downs. Hurricane tie downs. If you're in an older home,
Yeah.
have them do the hurricane tie downs. Make sure there's 3 nails. There is a business that's called Third Nail. Why? Because you get so much discount, such a greater discount on your insurance with 3 nails versus 1, which you don't get any. 2, at least they're going, yeah, there's tie downs. 3, you're fully
How do
secured.
they look? How do they look?
How do they look for them?
Yeah,
The inspectors have to go up in the attic and have to physically take a picture of those hurricane tie downs. And that's in the wind mitt, how you get those discounts.
Well, and that's
Okay.
interesting too, because with older homes and they have such, call it shallow roofs, where you can't really finagle around in there, how would an inspector get over to get that shot?
With the cameras and lighting we have now, they don't have to. I can reach it from here, and if the insulation's blocking it, I can get out my handy dandy paint extension rod, extend it out, push the insulation down, and take a picture. I just need an average, but now we're into the next section of this, okay? But anyway, that's the time to do that. And how about ventilation in a roof, guys? What if somebody does pack their insulation all the way out? They thought they were doing a super job as a weekend warrior, and they put their insulation all the way out and blocked where that should vent to the soffit. Now a roof can't vent. Next thing, an inspector's gonna be looking for immediately when I see that is underneath, where's the black?
yeah.
Because now the roof can't vent, it's gonna build up moisture.
Yeah.
And most likely they're gonna have mold in the attic, and then we've got a real problem that's harder to overcome. So ventilation is very important, okay? And things to know. And again, I didn't realize I'd never gone this place with you guys. This is great. And I mean, this is the easiest one for me to lead because it's like, it's just normal to me. Attic. You're looking for leaking and staining, and you're not. The inspector is.
Yep.
But if the inspector again says, oh man, there's bad staining up there, show me the pictures. He'll have them on his camera. Say, can you send me that one like that? I don't want it printed off in the report. I need that one just like that so I can blow it up and show them. And let my sellers know they're gonna have to replace the roof. Okay?
That's what they're telling them.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like, you're gonna have to replace the roof. I'm like, can I just replace that part of the roof? And, here's pictures.
Yeah.
Did they
Pictures,
let you do it?
pictures
Oh,
don't
yeah,
lie.
we just changed like 10 things.
Right.
Oh,
And sometimes that's the case, you had storm damage. Yeah, so insulation. What if the insulation, you get a picture back from the inspector and it looks really pretty up there and there's this shiny film on top. You can see the paper on the top of the insulation and it looks great. Is there a problem?
You can see paper on top of the insulation?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Firehouse already.
Oh,
it
what's
should
it
be
mean?
the other way,
Why?
cause that's what keeps the gases down.
Yeah, that's your vapor barrier.
Yeah,
That means a weekend warrior again got up there, had to somehow turn the roll upside down and feed it out so that that stayed on top instead of on the bottom, which is the way even the rolls are designed to roll out. But on the other hand, if they got it in 2 by 4 foot sections, they wouldn't know. Okay,
Oops.
but yeah, vapor barrier goes down to keep the gases, out of the house, and it breathes. Insulation works the best because it breathes. If it can't breathe, it's dead. It's now it's boxed into this little place, may as well be in the wall. In an attic, half of that insulation value is air. I don't think people realize that air is important. And it comes down to insulation and ventilation. How about ductwork deterioration and leaking? This doesn't have to be an old home. What if somebody has a brand spanking new home and the way the guys, let's say it's got this pretty little eave that sticks out in the front. This roof comes across this way, where those two meet. This is step flash. In other words, there's these little pieces of flashing like that. They bend, they put them with every single shingle. It goes up against the house, then they're counter flashed, it goes over top of that, and then the stucco. Okay, follow that process?
Mhm.
Shingles, step flashing, counter flashing, stucco. Goes all the way up. And it meets that little part of that eave that sticks out like this. Biggest problem area in most homes in Florida I've seen. Right here, squirrels get in. They just, it's very difficult for a guy doing aluminum softening to get that piece, number one, secured very well, because there's no real way to nail it. It's very difficult. They have to have a little palm nailer to get up in there usually. A lot of them just leave it loose. Squirrels get up there and just push. They had to cut that piece too to get it to fit. So now it's just a flimsy little piece of aluminum. Doesn't even have a ridge to support it. Push. Squirrels are in the attic. What do they eat? Everything. Squirrels are worse than rats in an attic. Oh, it's so bad. They will chew wiring. They will chew the insulation off of wiring. It's amazing. I'm assuming if they do that well enough and the power's on, maybe that one won't do any other wires, but it happens. They'll chew your insulation. They'll chew your ductwork. They chew the ductwork, all of a sudden you're air conditioning your attic. It's a pain. So deteriorating ductwork and leakage in the ductwork doesn't have to be an old home. Even though new homes now have flex ducting, which is insulated. Older homes still typically had the aluminum or metal ductwork wrapped with insulation. The squirrels eat the insulation off of that and it falls off, and now you've just got a metal pipe that's radiating the heat from the attic, and it's a pain. Okay, so and one we're doing right now, these sellers are replacing the ductwork. Why? Metal ductwork. Where's the insulation? Nobody knows. Okay, and the inspector called out the insulation as being upside down. But yet the insulation, all I could see was yellow, a sea of yellow. It's like, that's the fiberglass. It's absolutely right. Okay. So just because an inspector says something doesn't mean you check your brain at the door. These are things that I want you guys to know. Exposed wiring. Does that ever happen in attics? Especially with a homeowner that went up and put up their own fan. What do you mean I need a junction box? What's that? They bring the wire over, they bring the wires up for the fan, run them in, they just screw this fan's box to the truss that's anchored, looks great inside the house, make their wire connections in the attic, works great. And it does work great. Until there's a problem with one of those connectors and where it gets pulled, somebody walks to the attic, steps on that wire, pulls it a little bit, that separates, starts to arc, you have a fire. There's a reason for junction boxes, y'all. And junction boxes have to be covered with a lid. Why? Rodents. Biggest problem.
I have so many wires in my attic.
Mhm.
So many.
Yeah, and you
Everywhere.
should, as long as they're not open connections that are tied together. That's a bad thing. Okay, what about cloth wiring? Ever seen it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's sexy. Here's the challenge with cloth wiring. There's two kinds. The first one was a cloth wire with paper with aluminum wiring.
Mhm.
And the shield on that aluminum wire was paper.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Whoever first created that instead of Bolden tube.
That's
knob
like
and tube.
super old,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Software, yes.
But it's not as old as knob and tube.
Seventies and eighties.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Younger.
sixties,
Yeah.
early sixties.
I had that duplex, that was,
Yeah, it should be fifties and
70s.
sixties.
Yeah.
That was seventies.
that was seventies, and they had cloth wiring. in it.
Yeah, well, and then they had the other kind.
Yeah, they had both, because there's cloth wiring, and then there's asbestos wiring too.
Yeah, the asbestos is the first one I was talking about, but it's cloth.
Yeah.
But the second with paper,
Mhm.
the second one is actually, copper.
Mhm.
The wire is plastic, encased.
Mhm.
So the wiring actually looks like today's wiring. But yet it's cloth wrapped, paper wrapped around that. The challenge with those is when they bend, they crack. When they crack, you have an open arc.
Yeah.
What's an open arc do?
Zap.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Either kills somebody or creates fire. Here's the other thing that's still not totally gone. And I don't have it on here, but it's knob and tube. So, you'll see something that looks, pass me that bottle. Something that looks kind of like that much of the bottle sticking up. And you'll see this cloth wire come across, wrap around at one time and keep cooking. That's the way they used to wire. You'll see that in the thirties and forties for sure. And, that is, it's just, it's a fire hazard now. Okay, so we're looking for.
That too. Didn't think
They
about
just,
it.
well, back then, they were just happy to have power in there.
Right, that too, yeah.
Yeah, so those are the differences and things you look for in an attic, okay? Or the things the inspector's looking for in the attic. But this, it's really important part of our jobs that I think a lot of agencies don't even teach is this part of things. Because we need to have a basic knowledge on this, not the in-depth stuff that comes out of my brain. But if you have a question, ask me, because it'll still come out of my brain. I can't help it. But you need to have an idea. Okay, how about HVAC or your air conditioning here? Sorry, this is heat, ventilation, and air conditioning. Okay, so first thing they're gonna look for is obvious stuff. You know, but they'll walk in with a little temperature gauge typically in their hand, a little electric deal, point it up at it and go, okay, that's reading 64. That's not very cold. You're hoping to see something under 60. And then they're.
Look like that. I just got a photo.
But then they're going to go and they're going to take a little probe and stick it into the return air. So that's the air that's being drawn out of the house. And it's going to tell them what the temperature is going into the unit. They're going to know the temperature coming out of the unit and what or not out of the unit. The first part is the ductwork and going into the unit. If that differential is way off, that's a problem. Then if I would have been the inspector, I would have immediately gone and just read the other side of the plenum or the air conditioning air handler. I would have read the other side of that plenum to see what it's actually putting out. So now there's a 20-degree differential. Absolute bell ringer. That's a strong unit. Out of the ductwork, it's showing a 10-degree differential. Ductwork's leaking. That's all it can be. This isn't brain surgery. It's either connected or it's not. Either they taped that very well and they sealed it properly with the proper sealants, or they didn't. So leaky ductwork. How about a level condensing unit? What's a condensing unit? That's the part that's outside the house.
I was gonna say, that little water thing, like it's filled with water and you have to suck it.
Gotcha. No, that's your drain pan. But the condensing unit, and that's underneath your air handler, typically in the garage or attic. This is the condensing unit, is the actual condenser that is outside of the house. It should be blowing warm air. It's pulling air out of the house. During the summertime, it may even feel cool. Because it's drawing from, in my opinion, it's drawing from the house, running through all the condensing pipes and out of that unit. And then the big fan is, trying to keep that unit cool. And so it'll either blow warm or cool air. So if that's not level, it's a problem. It won't function well. That unit really needs to be level. If you see one sitting like this because the pad underneath it is falling away, you know, it's just something to mention to your buyer. Hey, you know, if you do buy it and everything comes out fine, I'd level that unit. It'll last a lot longer. It's just, it's a mechanical thing. If you've got a mechanical fan and you tip it this way, it's not gonna last as long as if those bearings are set level. It just can't, okay? Visible mold growth. Oh, that's a sexy one. And Joey's working on this one right now, I think. But visible mold growth, they're gonna look at the air handler. And number one, and this is something you can help your sellers with. People don't wipe off their air handlers. Air handlers draw moisture because they're cooler than the air around them. Let's think, air, moisture, dark space. What's it create? At least mildew. Yeah, I don't try to call it mold right away. I try to just say, hey, it's probably mildew. Clean the mildew off. If it's brown and orange and fuzzy, run. Because the fact of the matter is, I believe it's called Stachybotrys. I always say it wrong. But it's one of the really bad molds that can kill you. And it happens. And again, mold spores just blow in. You never know what they're gonna get. But if it's just the typical mildew stuff, why wouldn't they wipe their unit off? Clean it up, at least on the outside. They're not gonna open up the inside, but if it looks that bad on the outside, guys, I would recommend before we have this home inspection, let's just have the unit serviced and cleaned. It needs it. A lot of people, it's blowing cold air. Why? Routine maintenance, right? Okay, so encourage them. Rusty vent covers. Huh? What would lead to such a thing? Moisture. Yeah. A lot of Florida homes have moisture units that are added to their air handlers. Because the air gets so dry, people get nosebleeds, things like you get in the desert. I mean, your nose gets dry. So it's common to have a moisture, the name will come to me, but anyway, you have a moisture control. If people are running too much moisture at the house, that'll do it. If they're taking showers, leaving the bathroom door open, they like a really hot shower. Moisture. What's it going to attract to? This vent's cold. Warm air, cold, and it's gonna rust. As a homeowner, why don't they just replace the rusty covers now? Remove that fear. And the fact of the matter is, guys, when you take a shower, please close the bathroom door from here on out and run your exhaust fan. That's why it's there. A lot of people just, honestly, I don't think they think about it.
I don't have exhaust fans.
Okay, well, that means you have a window.
Yeah, I do have.
You either have a window or an exhaust fan. It has to be one or the other. Even with a window, I would add an exhaust fan, because how often do you actually open the window when you shower? And that's what,
Yeah, never open my bathroom.
and that should be open during every shower.
I leave my door open all the time.
Yep, so let's add exhaust fans if there are any. But so that's why and the way that works. Okay, hey Chris, ask Joey to go talk a little lower so we won't hear him on this recording.
Talking about the room, close the door.
He is,
I open the door so.
I think it is. That's just how
Oh, he's loud?
vocal Joey can be.
Yeah,
So, oh, it was.
but you still hear him.
That's shocking. Okay. Yeah, I know, me too. Well, and my voice carries too. So plumbing. Let's get into the plumbing systems. Water systems. These are all going to be inspected by your inspector, right? They're going to check everything from each faucet, each drain stopper. You know how easy it is to replace drain stoppers. There's one little screw in the back underneath on the drain that you undo. This little thing comes out and
The
slides.
toilet?
Huh?
The toilet stuff, you mean?
No, I'm talking the sink drain. It simply has one piece, yeah, the same thing. One piece, unscrew it, pull it out, and then it's got a little C clamp
I'm
that
not
holds
so
the
yeah.
thing. It's just so easy. So again, if a drain stopper's missing, replace it. Water heater. excuse me, this is where we were talking about, wipe the top off. I don't care if it's a 1930s water heater, if it's functional, the inspector can say, it's past the point of its useful life, but it's functioning as intended. And it looks great, and here's a picture of it, and you look at it, and it's like, thing looks wonderful. You can't see the inside, but the outside looks great. The pipes going in it are clean, because you took a steel wool or a 3M pad, or you didn't, the seller did, and shined those up. Everything looks nice. Everything looks nice and pretty. And, you know, it will still be called out for beyond the extent of its useful life, but functional. So it doesn't have to be replaced, right? If it's just called out as being beyond its lifetime.
That's where the insurance.
All right. And, yep, and sometimes the insurance will say, we're not gonna insure it without a new water heater. Now you have to replace the water heater, okay? And not only that, you might be planning on replacing it anyway. It's just in an inspector's mind now. He's come through and he's checked the outside of the house, he's walked the roof, he's opened the garage, he's walked in the garage, he's looked at the air handler. Naturally, the water heater is gonna be next because it's right there. Then it's the electric panel, it's all those things in that order. Typically, the way an inspector's mind works. So they get down, they look at the water heater, it looks great. Their mind goes, wow, this house is very nicely maintained. It's just, would that not be a normal assumption? Okay, so they've checked the air handler, somebody wiped off the outside of it, looks great. They had it serviced, the inside now looks great too. The water heater looks great, even though it's ancient, and they're moving onward. How about types of piping? I hope I'm not going too in depth for you guys, but I'll speed it up. No, I won't. 1980s, ABS piping. It was black. It cracks. Bottom line, ABS 1980s piping cracks. It fails. If it hasn't failed, it will. They used to use these as main drains going out to curbs, and they used it for supply runs. It cracks. It leaks. It's a mess. PEX. It's a great flex pipe. Lifetime is unknown.
Cause it's new.
It's new. The lifetime's unknown. Some
Hopefully lasts forever.
Some
Jesus' name.
Some don't.
We both have it.
I have nothing to say about it, except if it's in a mobile home that was built in the 60s, it's a problem.
See, I didn't realize they had PEX back then.
Yeah, well, they might not have called it PEX, it's a gray flex. Okay.
Okay, I didn't realize that was the same thing.
How about copper?
We love copper.
There's really not a problem with copper. Copper has been the main plumbing supply forever until all of a sudden it got super expensive.
Yeah.
So what it must be is sleeved, apparently with my capital L here. But any place where, I know, sleeve, any place where copper could possibly come in contact with masonry, it has to be sleeved, and typically that's done with a lead sleeve. Why would that be? Deterioration, it will rot and break if it's in contact with concrete. Okay,
I didn't even.
yeah, so it must be sleeved.
For what?
It's probably the chemical.
Because something about the chemical reaction between copper and whatever's in the masonry product.
Okay.
Okay,
Did I know that?
cast iron,
Run.
not necessarily. If it's a, say it's a 1950s home, this is very common. The only challenge that it has is it bellies.
And flakes.
And it can flake, but if it's nice and round, and this is where, if you see cast iron, recommend the buyer gets their plumbing scoped or videoed, which is what I'm having a problem with this guy in Never Never Land right now. But he's done it, he just hasn't given me the report. But anyway, what are we looking for in that?
Not belly.
Hopefully not going, because you see what's in there, but ignore all of that crap and know that you're looking for a round pipe. This is not brain surgery, a round pipe. If that pipe has changed shape, it's called bellying. What's the problem with that? It clogs. When it clogs, what happens? A toilet can now drain to a shower stall. Nasty.
Yeah.
If it hasn't done any of those things, and it's flaking and just looks bad, and you can see where toilet paper and stuff's hanging up on it, you just need to have it jetted and you're good as new.
Yeah, you can clean it.
And it rocks and rolls, okay?
Well,
So, it's either bellied or it's not.
I did have one jetted and it damaged it.
yeah, it can make it
Okay, well, it didn't damage it, it exposed the problem.
Right.
fair.
Yeah,
Can't they do, basically run a sleeve through the cast iron to protect it from that?
they can actually run, a sleeve through a cast iron pipe, explode it and run a new pipe inside it. It's fascinating. But, yeah, but it may.
It is,
But it's cheaper than going through tile floor, concrete floors, exposing everything and doing it, okay?
Yeah.
PVC, it's what we would hope to see in every house.
Yeah.
It just has the fewest or least problems. CPVC is another one. It is, a more of a tannish colored pipe that looks like PVC, but it's not white. It's been okay too, but it does crack. If it gets hit, it's easier to crack. Yeah, it's just easier to crack.
Yeah.
PVC is the ticket.
Yeah.
So, electrical. Outlets, GFCI. That's what you're looking for. It's a ground fault circuit interrupter, which is what we want to have happen instead of it grounding through somebody's body and killing them, okay? Not required, in the sixties and prior. So if a home does not have them and you're the buyer's agent, ask for them anyway. If I'm the agent on the other side, I'm gonna go, you know, that's a reasonable request, I'll try. But just because I'm saying I try, doesn't mean that the seller is going to be okay with it, because it wasn't required when the home was built. And we're not required to bring homes up to current codes to sell them, okay?
What's fun though is if they do like, so they have a GFCI in the kitchen and
Then they're
then
gonna do it all.
yeah, everything.
Mhm. They knew it was a problem, they fixed one, now you gotta do it all. Switches. These are things they're gonna test. You hear a switch going, zzz, that's not a good sign, okay? Main panel, they're gonna open it up. What are they gonna look for? Overburdened circuit breakers,
double taps.
double taps where there's two wires under one. General poor, quality workmanship. What you wanna see when you open up a panel is one wire coming off of each breaker, those wires being straight this way, going up and out, through the main, conduit. Beautiful. If there is a double tap, typically what they have to do is take that outside of the box for some stupid reasons beyond me, put a junction box there, feed it with the two wires and a wire nut and feed it right back in with a single wire and it's acceptable. Why the electric panel can't be that breaker box is beyond me, and breakers have spots for two wires, so.
Oversized and undersized breakers.
Oh, that's the other big thing. Yeah, that's the other big thing. If somebody's got an overburdened circuit breaker, a 15 amp breaker running a dryer.
Right.
Or a
And
hot
you just
tub.
don't think about that. Like,
Right.
I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a dryer. You're like, wait a minute. And you don't understand
Yep.
electricity.
Move along.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right. These things are not used in modern day construction. We talked about these earlier, knob and tube, aluminum cloth wiring, right? Maybe copper, but still cracks. Poor construction. An inspector is going to look for poor construction practices. And this is where it really helps to have somebody that's been in construction. A guy that has a checklist with boxes he's checking may or may not have any idea on what he's looking for in this. So they may make it notes of any fire issues, general maintenance issues, safety issues, those need to be addressed. But maintenance issues, you need to know how to say, when you're reviewing with a buyer or seller, look, we need to, before you even start, before we review this, before I send it to you, no, we need to look at, this is maintenance, this is a health and safety issue or a code issue that we need to address. Understood? Great, I'll send it over to you. Or let's get together and review it. If it's a nervous buyer, get together with them. And this I just put in here, toenail trusses and et cetera. So this is an old style of doing construction, which is not terrible, but they used a flat plate on top of the, well, a wood frame, flat plate, or block wall, flat plate, anchored down, and the trusses come down, sits on it, they toenail the truss in it. And if you see one with a single toenail, it's not good. And that's where you would really hope to see hurricane tie downs. So that's that, and that would be a problem on a 4-point, right? How about lead-based paint? They're gonna call it out if it's before 1978. You need to be aware of the potential problems with it. Kids eat it, apparently it tastes good. Use the correct addendum and brochure. Go to app files and filter the word lead. But the reason it became a problem is apparently it tastes like candy.
Oh, wow.
So this is the disclosure. You're gonna find it in our app files. Use it. You have to use this, guys. You break the law if you're not using this, and your liability skyrockets for negligence. Don't be dumb. Keep yourself safe.
Yes, sir.
Sellers disclosures, they need to say if they know about it or no knowledge. These things need to be addressed and checked. Same thing down below, let's talk about buyers. And it's going to say that you gave your buyer your lead-based paint disclosure brochure. You can't just have them do one and not send this. Do it in an email, because now you have proof, okay? Don't just hand them a copy. Break. Good, break's over. Thermal imaging.
Hey.
Uses infrared technology. This is important. When no visible clues exist and you use this is just showing under a door what to expect. This is common, all right? But if that's an entry door, yeah, they're missing a seal, right? And the nice thing about this is they'll show you ductwork and things as well. There's a place for this. It's not required, but it's a nice feature. And a lot of home inspectors will use this and not charge anything extra for it, okay? Mold. Enough said. Now, thermal, run, what are you dealing with? Imaging can help identify where the moisture infiltration points are, and you know, those kind of things. An inspector is going to tell you, hopefully, if they see it, and then what you want to do, especially if there's black mold, it's harmful, and the impacts on health, it's bad. So, and again, areas that have been flooded is where you're going to have the biggest problems with these. Typically, it also is accompanied by a bad smell, especially if it's in wet plaster. Plaster, again, is in the older homes where they used lath and plaster on the walls instead of drywall. Basement walls, floors, crawl spaces, dark spaces where they've been wet is typically your biggest problem, and or areas that have been allowed to stay wet for too long. It's not uncommon in Florida, right, for things to get wet. The thing is, dry it out immediately. Home floods. Take all your pictures. Tell your insurance company, look, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna rip off the drywall from the flood line down so I don't have mold in my house. And if they're planning on staying, especially, you'll do it yourself, like within days, and the stuff just falls apart because it was wet. But if you get it off of there, it won't mold. Okay, so the big thing with getting wet, dry it. Insurance, wind mitigation. This is huge. All right, so we have to have the 4-point and wind mitigation is typical for home insurance. Wind mitigation, and here's the other thing, guys. When you're getting your general home inspection, you can tell them, look, take all the pictures you need for the 4-point and for the wind mit, because if we move forward, we're gonna order those reports from you guys, and or some of them will just include it in the price, others cost, charge $100 a pop, whatever. This is what you send to your insurance company, the wind mitigation and the 4-point, not the full-blown home inspection that makes them go cross-eyed because they know every maintenance issue with the house. Wind mitigation is designed to tell you how much wind damage you can inflict on a structure and it stay together, bottom line. So, good wind mitigation is going to lower your insurance rates. Window design and or protection or coverings. It's important. If somebody has plywood in their garage that they use to cover their windows, that typically meets the bill, even though it's better to have a corrugated steel or aluminum or Lexan, those all work. Okay, so there's options there. And or you can have somebody that spent a ton of money and they have impact windows. That meets the need. Roof design. A lot of people don't realize that a roof design affects the difference. If you've got a gable end roof, so this is exposed, that costs more. If they made the hip roof where that comes down this way, it's much lower rate. All it takes is one hip added to a house to change the insurance rate. Okay, roof age. We know that does. It's always all these things tie together. And that's where we were talking about. If you take off the outside edge And, then they can put in the hurricane acres. Roof plywood nailing patterns, it's important. Nail has to be every 6 inches for, Florida, Miami-Dade hurricane codes. Garage door rating. People will do everything on the house and forget the garage door. Garage door is one of the easiest things to blow in on a storm. What happens when a garage door blows in? The roof comes off. It's just the way it works. Okay?
The air starts going, "Wee."
Yeah, it'll go straight up through your scuttle access. Doesn't even have to necessarily take the drywall with it, just that scuttle access. Because it's loose, it's just sitting in place, unless you have a really nice letter there. Anyway, year built does have to do with the code issues that you may or may not find typically, okay? You do have mom and pops out there still doing things that they didn't think there was any building code in this area. It's like, just because you don't have a county code doesn't mean there is not state and US general building codes. That was typically where I got called. Right. And that's unfortunate. I went to court over a lot of those things where people just didn't know. So, 4-point inspection. Again, this is the other part of your insurance inspection. They're, typically if the home's 30 years older or older was the deal. Now they're asking for them more. Here's the deal, guys. It's easy enough to get a 4-point. Why not just get one and provide it with the one meant to the insurance company? And they're going, check, check, perfect. Let's write this one up. And they're just going to check the 4 things we talked about earlier. Electric, plumbing, HVAC, and roofing. What causes an inspection to fail? These are the things we need to ask ourselves. The same thing with what causes our deals to fail. Nothing, because we're going to monitor them and we're going to help get through these things. Unless, there are issues sometimes. But wear and tear of mechanical systems, that'll do it. Roofing, cracked shingles on the roof. A leaking roof is a huge red flag, all right? No ventilation, improper blocked ventilation. Leaks or cracks in walls. Oh, there's Nova. Cracks that are larger than normal or vertical, not stair step. Hi, sweetheart. We're going to record you. You're going to be in our office recordings now. That's perfect. We love kids. It's so so cracks that are larger than normal or vertical, not stair step. Improperly wired switches, faulty outlets. Am I loud? I'm not as loud as your dad, am I? Maybe I am. Cracks in windows and doors will do it. Termite, rodent infestations will kill an inspection. Hurricane tie-down anchors. Yeah, that can do it too. It depends on the insurance, but if they don't have these, they're going to Citizens. Okay?
Yep.
That's the way it works. Other inspections, if required or requested. Septic, well, mold, air quality. Why would you do air quality? Typically if there's mold. And video drains, especially cast iron, right? Negotiations. They're not over when you're in contract. Now you've got your inspections done. You're going back after the inspections, even if you have an as-is contract, might be time to renegotiate if there's problems, right? The roof's too old. Yeah. You gotta negotiate.
Right.
So be understanding with both sides, of course. We understand why your seller didn't replace the roof. It hadn't been leaking. We just can't get insurance. And if we do, it's gonna be super expensive. So it's gonna have to be done, whether it's us or the next one. Help them. You're the negotiator. The more you know, the easier it is to keep almost every deal together. That's all there is to it, guys. That is the end of home inspection training.